But I want to start with 12 godly characteristics of highly useful women. In other words, what is it God can use in your life? If you got to choose what you're going to do with your time, and you're looking at how fast it's traveling by, I would focus on the characteristics that God says, those are useful for eternity. And if you want to invest your life wisely, invest in cultivating the characteristics that are highly useful to God. And He will use you as a nurturing woman. Women who are highly useful to God have these characteristics. The long-term goal of their lives is geared toward being useful to God. See, there have to be little choices. You can't do everything. I heard someone recently say, you're supposed to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. No, the original was a jack of all trades, but a master of one. See, we can do many things in life, but we're to master one. Well, those who want to be highly useful to God want to master that which is vital to Him. And so, parents who want their children to be useful to the Lord begin early on to point their children toward the high calling and great joy of being a Titus 2 woman and a Titus 2 man. And the whole goal of Titus 2 as a woman is to train younger women in biblical, simple-to-measure, Spirit-empowered, love-based living. This is not heavy doctrine stuff. This is not talking in big Greek and Latin words. This is practical, everyday living. And someday, we need to realize that no matter how much up here we have of all this vast knowledge, if it doesn't come down to everyday life, then it's not true Titus 2 daily love-based living. And that's what he said, empowered by the Spirit. We'll examine the character God desires, the character God calls for, and the character God uses in women of any age. It's a lifestyle all women of any age should long for and aspire towards. Basically, I could summarize a Titus 2 woman as a godly wife who loves her husband in such a profound way, he appears deeply satisfied with her love. If you want to know how to spot a Titus 2 woman, look for children who are so obviously loved by their mother, and look for a husband who walks around so grateful and so apparently loved by his wife, because those are the two highest teaching methods of a godly Titus 2 woman. She's to teach other women how to love their husbands. And secondly, teach them how to love their children. And those are the first two that God put on the list. And so those are very evident. She is also a godly mother whose children know they are deeply loved. Look for a woman that radiates love and joy, and you have a godly Titus 2 woman. Well, this morning, if you could think of the most loving, gracious, self-sacrificing mother you could ever imagine, think of one that knows you, loves you, helps you, understands you, encourages you, comforts you in every failure, and rejoices in every good choice you make. You have just imagined the Titus 2 godly older woman of the church. That's what she's like in the context of this relationship. And that's how they did it back then. That's how they turned them from paganism to the godly Christian home they'd never grown up in. They never knew. It was through the nurture of that older woman, of the younger, of that older man, of the younger. You see, godly womanhood, as laid down in God's Word, is caught more than it's taught. Paul did not call for Titus, as the pastor, to train all the women in these qualities God wanted them to cultivate. Rather, Titus taught the truth, and God called upon the godly older women of Christ's church. They were the ones to be deployed, all of them, in this ministry. He singles out the women of faith, those who had already learned to love their husbands, those who had already learned how to love their children, those who learned to be reverent, who learned to be godly and modest and wise. He charged them with seeking out and meeting with every younger woman in the church. You see, this wasn't sign up, get the flyer. This was a this was an active, living process where the older women knew there was no higher calling than to find another woman to pour their life into, and the younger women knew that there was no greater realm to learn from than to find that radiant, godly example and to learn from her. Well, Paul seems to describe far more than a Bible study for those early church believers. He seems to be calling for practical, hands-on training sessions. He seems to be pointing toward one-on-one nurturing in homes by an older woman in the faith as being the norm. Older women aspired to have the joy of entering the home and life of another woman and of pouring her love, her life, and most of all, her godly experience into that younger woman's life and marriage and family. What was the result of all this? Well, let me just briefly describe and just kind of skip through the words of this passage, the fantastic results of a Titus 2 long-term, behind-the-scenes, encouraging, discipling, and coaching ministry.